everyone, Alexa Donne here, and today I'm going to be covering 10 reasons why publishing rejects you. If you're new to the channel, I am a traditionally published young adult fiction writer. I've been in the industry for almost 10 years on the trying to get published and getting plenty of rejection train for about half of those years. And my first book came out last year. My second one's coming out in February. I am on my second literary agent, and I'm very familiar with all the ins and outs of the traditional publishing industry, specifically young adult fiction. I am pulling from a lot of knowledge here, personal experience, things that have happened to friends, as well as grilling my own literary agent Alana Roth Parker and some other agents and editors that I am friendly with to ask, well, why do people get rejected? I think it's a huge fear people have about the traditional publishing industry, and if you understand some of these key reasons you might be rejected, you can improve yourself, increase your odds, or just feel better, because some of these are just simply out of your control. They're very subjective, but I'm going to go over 10 of them. So the first reason publishing rejects you is that your query is bad. What is a query, you ask? It is a pitch letter for your book that you have to write in order to get a literary agent. And you can't get a publishing deal at most traditional publishers without a literary agent. So this is like the first level that you have to reach in order to be published. But if your query is bad, you're going to be rejected. There's a lot of reasons a query can be bad. It can just not sell the book very well. So it's a matter of reframing your query, learning how to write one so that you're just pitching it well. Your query can be bad because you talk about yourself and not the book. Your query can be bad because for some reason you open it up by insulting the agent and the industry. You'd be amazed how many queries you'll see that insult the agent's clients. A query can be bad because it's oblivious and preachy. YA sucks, but this book's gonna teach all the kids the lesson. So many reasons that a query can just fall flat on its face, and if you fail to grab the agent's attention, you're done. Agents receive hundreds of queries, sometimes a day, very often in a week. So it's your job to craft something eye-catching that the agent will read all the way through. Your job is to get them to your pages. You need to know your genre. You need to know how to write a query. There are many places you can workshop them. I highly recommend reading the Query Shark blog archives. Agent Janet Reed has created an incredible resource, like being very clear about what makes a good query. Go back, read the archives. You can post your query for review on places on Reddit, for example, the Pub Tips subreddit. Really workshop that query and then query smart and in batches. You see, I don't offer harsh advice without offering helpful advice to improve. And the second reason publishing rejects you is your writing is bad. It can mean that you're simply not ready, that you have a lot further to go in terms of writing and craft, or it can mean that you haven't properly edited your writing that you are submitting to agents and or publishers. You only have one chance to make a first impression, so if the first thing they see of your writing is unpolished, unsophisticated, boring, they're not going to want to read on, and you're facing rejection simply because your writing isn't quite ready. You don't have to query or try to get published every single thing that you write. Sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is stick something in a trunk and chalk it up to a learning experience. It's always worth, in my opinion, editing something that you've written, even if it might not be the one, because editing something and trying to make it better teaches you a lot that you then take with you into drafting the next project. But yeah, sometimes you face rejection simply because you are not ready as a writer. This one's really hard, it's really heartbreaking, but anyone can improve as a writer with some due diligence, but you have to not blame the industry for being dumb and not understanding your genius, but accept that maybe your writing isn't quite where it needs to be and that it's on you to do the due diligence to push on and improve your writing until you are ready. The third reason publishing rejects you is you've written in a dead genre. Publishing is a business. It's about producing books that publishing thinks people will buy. And if you've written something that's in a super saturated genre, dead, if you're doing tropes but you're not subverting them or doing anything fresh, bringing anything fresh to the table, you're going to be auto-rejected. There are definitely certain categories that agents and editors at publishing houses simply know they can't sell. You can have written a really great book. You can be a technically proficient and good writer and storyteller, but if you're writing in a dead genre, it's just not going to land. The fourth reason publishing rejects you is you are starting in the wrong place. You'd be amazed how much that first impression really matters. You can have a great book on your hand, a great concept, but if the first thing that an agent or an editor is reading is boring or confusing, they are going to make a snap judgment on your craft skill as a storyteller and not waste their time reading the whole thing. Beginnings are vitally important. So if you're in this situation, you need to workshop that beginning, really try different things, think about how active that beginning is, but is it too active? I do have a whole video on beginnings and starting in the right place, which I will link to down below. Essentially, you definitely want to think about that first impression that you're giving with the first page, the first scene, the first chapter. Make sure you're not info dumping too much. It's a delicate balance of kind of that first drop into the story. And publishers just don't have a lot of time to spend kind of digging for gems, so you want to land it on that first impression. So the fifth reason publishing rejects you is they just don't think it will sell. Again, publishing is a business, and agents in particular, they can't represent projects. They can't sell to editors. I mean, literally their job is to sell books to editors. And if they are looking at what you've sent, even if they think it's good and they simply don't think anyone would buy it, they can't represent you or won't represent you. In many of these cases, they might tell you, hey, I can tell you're a really good writer, send me something else, but they're not going to sign you for a project that they don't think they can sell, because that's setting both of you up for disappointment. Same thing with editors. If publishers and specifically the sales and marketing team don't think there's a consumer market for it, it just doesn't make sense for them in terms of ROI to buy something. So sellability matters a lot in publishing. I mean, it's the linchpin of traditional publishing. It is a business of selling books. So saleability of something matters a lot. The sixth reason publishing rejects you, specifically agents, is they don't represent what you write. This goes hand in hand with reason 7. We're gonna put them together. Reason 7 is you didn't follow the guidelines. You'd be amazed how many people don't follow the rules. And when it comes to submitting to agents, querying agents, or to publishers, following the guidelines is critically important. You are literally wasting an agent's time or an editor's time if you send them a book that they don't rep. You shouldn't send a YA sci-fi novel to someone who reps adult literary. You shouldn't send nonfiction to a fiction agent or epic adult fantasy to a children's literature agent. You're going to be an auto-reject. They're gonna skim in that query again and go, I don't even represent this. Reject. You've wasted your time, you've wasted their time, and I'm gonna clue you in on a little secret. You might not believe me, but it's true. I've observed this personally through running my author mentor match program, because we have a submissions inbox, and you'd be amazed how many people don't follow the guidelines. And every agent I've talked to has expressed this as well, that a shocking number of queries, percentage of queries, are discarded and rejected simply because they're not following the guidelines. This is a total random percentage I am pulling out of my ass, but every agency intern and agent and whatnot I have talked to kind of agrees. Probably only 10 to 15, maybe 20% of queries, maybe 30 if we're being generous, follow all the guidelines and are actually good enough writers to earn representation. When you are out there and querying and you're trying to get traditionally published, your competition isn't actually everyone who's querying, because most of them simply aren't ready for prime time. They're querying the wrong people. They're not following the guidelines. Your competition is actually that much smaller percentage of writers who are following guidelines, querying the right people, and are actually good enough to be published. So if you can meet these bare minimum requirements, you have a better shot than you think. So the 8th reason publishing rejects you, this one is pure subjective taste, guys. Sometimes the person you've queried or submitted your book to just hates the thing that you wrote. It's this visceral reaction of, oh God, I just really don't like books like this. Like, oh, I can't stand mermaids, or I really don't like romance, or adventure novels bore me. And so it's just the complete happenstance of the subjectivity of the market, of readership, of taste. This is why you should never assume that 1 rejection or even 5 rejections means that you are down for the count. Everything about querying and submitting your books to publishers is about finding that ideal fit, finding that person who just gels on a cellular level with everything that you write, the tropes that you write, the style of your writing, both the literal writing style and kind of, do you write character-driven novels, do you write plot-driven novels, and so on. So very often you're going to be rejected purely just for subjective taste reasons. So don't feel bad when you get those kinds of rejections. I mean, they're always a bummer, but it's kind of like you wouldn't want to be represented by someone that doesn't really love exactly what you write. The best advocate for your work is someone who's passionately interested in the book that you have. And sometimes that fit is totally there, but the fates. The 9th reason that publishing rejects you is they simply already have something like it. Someone beat you to the punch. In the case of agents, they already have an author on their list who writes really similar books, or even sometimes this one kills. You couldn't have possibly known it. One of their clients, maybe their leading client, has a secret book project and it's really similar to yours. So they can't represent you because it is a conflict of interest. And again, it is the biggest bummer, but it's the kind of rejection where you're like, I wouldn't want them to represent me and represent them, because simply the fact that that agent would be totally fine having their clients butt heads, like, I want more loyalty than that. So it's the biggest bummer. Oh gosh, on the publisher side too, I have received these rejections, guys. Oh, we would buy this, but we just bought something like it. Oh, it's like you see the chance just like slip through your fingers like sand, but also oh shit, there's now a competing title potentially by a much more famous author that's gonna come out. Oh, this one hurts. But again, it's subjective, it's out of your control, it's just the fates of publishing. Very often it's just like the right timing and someone getting there first. And the 10th reason publishing rejects you is twofold. What you have just isn't special enough. It just doesn't stand out in the market, and thus they just don't love it enough. This rejection hurts more than anything else, in my opinion, even though it is very subjective and you can logically tell yourself, well, I mean, it was a fit thing. But knowing that that agent or that publisher just didn't think that your book had the special sauce to push them to have that passion for it, to feel that passion. On the one hand, you've obviously dodged a bullet because you don't want to work with someone who isn't passionately interested in you, as I already mentioned. But on the other hand, you're like, I'm just not good enough, I guess? You can't let it get to you too much, because one person will say, I can tell you're really talented, you have something here, I'm just not the right fit for this, I just don't love it enough, I wish you the best, I'm sure someone else will feel differently. And very often they do, and you find your happy ending. But sometimes you don't. There are definitely cases where you have a project and you get so far in the process, whether it's on the query level or the submission level with editors, but you hear that deadly gut punch. Just didn't love it enough. Don't think it'll stand out in a crowded market. And there's usually nothing you can do other than come up with a new idea and write a new book. So those are 10 reasons that publishing rejects you. As you can tell, they range widely from you're not ready for prime time, you're not good enough, you're being dumb and breaking rules and shooting yourself in the foot, to opinions are awful and subjective, and sometimes it's just not your lucky day. The important thing to know is when you're facing all of these rejections, all these different reasons that you might be rejected by agents and editors, all of these are surmountable in the sense that you can improve your writing, you can write a new book, you can do more research into the market to try to understand what you're doing wrong, get new critique partners, you can learn to follow the guidelines. I mean, that is half of the battle some of the time. Like, seriously, follow the guidelines and don't be a jerk in your query. That one always blows my mind, mesmerizes me a bit. And then if you're getting those subjective rejections, the ones that are just like so close, but not, sometimes it's you need a revision. Sometimes it's you have to try again, just query someone else, submit to someone else. And sometimes it's a back to the drawing board, start over. The thing I do want to leave you with, the hope, is that when you do start to get those more subjective rejections, the ones that are just like, I'm not the right person for this, or it's bad luck, it's bad timing, often this is a sign that you have something. Not all rejection has to be a game ender, a total annihilation of your writerly soul. Sometimes rejection can lead to hope, that you're close, you might be one project away or one query away from getting to that next step. So don't lose hope, and drop any questions you have about all of this rejection stuff down below in the comments. I will try to answer as many queries as I can. I mean, not literal queries. Don't drop your queries below. I meant questions. Though I gotta tell you, half the time, the problem is the query. I've seen just bad queries for good books, and it's just a matter of reframing. So definitely do all that query workshopping, because very often it's not your book, it's how you're pitching your book. And yes, I know it's really painful that we as authors, as like fiction writers, also have to be amazing at marketing. I know it sucks, but there are resources out there to help you, and you can overcome. Give this video a thumbs up if you like it, and I will make more content about traditional publishing and kind of the ups and downs and ins and outs of the industry. If you're not already subscribed, go ahead and do that. I post new videos 2 to 3 times a week. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, guys, happy writing.